You're listening to the fourth series of Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maya.
And me, Andrew. Rock and roll. No longer interested in pushing pointless rocks up never-ending hills. Sisyphus anchored the gods. Who did I upset? No longer want to push the boulders of others. The reward for that is more rocks, like Jacob Marley's ghost, carrying the chains of his misdeeds. Who did I grieve? To prefer the hermit's life, where the rocks are your own and not someone else's. They're about survival, not a supplicant to the world. But wasn't Sisyphus a reluctant hermit of sorts? The rocks continue to roll down the slope for infinity's sake, each one someone's mistake. And two choices remain: dodge them or push them back up again.
Rock and roll draws inspiration from the ancient Greek myth of Sisyphus, who was punished for his hubris by the gods to push a rock uphill for eternity. He thought that he was more clever and strong than Zeus. The philosopher Albert Camus uses him as a metaphor for futility of life, or to explain that the only meaning that life has is the one that we assign to it. In your poem, what is he, Sisyphus, a metaphor for?
So I think I should start by explaining how I know about Sisyphus. So I didn't study Greek mythology at university or even school. I mean, I do have a side interest in Greek mythology. I've read some of the books, but mainly I know it through popular culture sort of films like the original Clash of the Titans, Jason the Argonauts, all sort of the original films. But Sisyphus I specifically know from a cartoon which was French and dubbed into English, and it played in the mid-80s in England, I would say, after school, and it's known around the world as Ulysses 31. And in one episode that's called The Eternal Punishment, Ulysses, in space, as that story was set, comes across a planet where King Sisyphus basically is at the bottom of a crater. A metal boulder rolls down every day. His job is to break it to pieces, throw it down a hole, and then the next day the boulder reappears and he does it again and again and again, and it's constantly his punishment. He tricks Ulysses. Ulysses takes his place, and Ulysses goes through the hole and realizes that underneath the planet is a huge system of recycling that metal ball. So that metal ball that he breaks down every day and that Sisyphus is breaking down every day is the same exact metal ball that reappears the next day for him to break down.
What about the aspect of the futility of life? Life really, as a concept, doesn't make much sense because, as we discuss in other poems, at the end of life there's always death. So all the effort that you put in is futile unless we all agree that there is a meaning to life, which is what humans have done through centuries.
Well, no one's really come up with a good enough theory for me as to the meaning of life. The futility of life, that's interesting because that also changes throughout your life as you get older, basically. Haven't, most of us worked in a job where you feel like every day is the same. Regardless of what you're doing for a living, every day is the same. You're doing the same things. It's you pushing that boulder up, and then the next day it's back again. And yes, in my line of work, that may be another patient, but they certainly, after doing something for a long time, there can be a fatigue that comes along with doing that. This poem also talks about not only doing your own work, but doing the work of others as well. And
is this the stones that you're referring to in your poem?
Yeah, and so it's not. This is not just a work-based poem, although I certainly have experiences of, because I am reliable and I push my stones up, sometimes I'm seen as somebody that should be pushing other people's stones up. And in my line of work, I can't let anybody's rocks fall down. We all have to push up, basically, because the risks are too great if you don't do that. In my personal life, I certainly have found myself pushing up partners' boulders to the top of the hill when they didn't want to anymore. And again, there are stakes at risk in that as well. It's not just a matter of if something doesn't get done, then it has no consequences. Some of those boulders have huge consequences. When you're parents, for example, you have children depending on you. You can't let things fall on them. You have to push up. But it's something that's very tiring.
At the end of the poem, you talk about two choices, and one is to dodge the boulders and the other one is to push back the stones. What do you normally do in your life? What is your choice?
So I push the boulders back, and I push the boulders back of others because of the consequences of not doing so. In your experience and your experience of life, both work and relationships, have you ever done that? Have you ever had to do that?
Do what?
Push other people's rocks.
I think we all do. I mean, humans are group animals. So it's impossible. You have to be really disengaged with life not to have pushed someone's boulder for a while. Whether that's your child, whether that's your niece and nephew, or whether that's a random person on the street who just needs help for directions, or a friend who needs a loan. Yeah, there are many examples. So yes, I am human, so I have pushed other people's stones, and also I've had help. But what I find interesting is that sometimes you help people to push their stone, and then they don't look back, they don't say thank you, they even pretend that they don't know you. I've never done that. I think that's horrible. I've always been loyal to people who have helped me. I consider that sort of a promise. If someone has given you help, to help them back. I never expect the same from people, but I have been surprised how people view help and how sometimes they're embarrassed that someone has helped them and want to forget about that.
That we've talked about people and different kinds of people in this podcast over the various episodes, and it's, I class myself as a humanist, so we often talk about the human condition and what we struggle with and what other people struggle with, as we know as well. I think some people are definitely aware that you've done something for them, and some are very grateful. Some have problems saying thank you, and some, I don't think they think anything of you doing something for them. It's like it's nothing for them. There's like a certain expectation that of course you're going to do that, and in relationships, that's really tough sometimes, and it leads to breakdowns in relationships where the other person gets tired, they can't, so you have to, and then you're doing that, and then you're doing that for months and years, and it fatigues you. There's only so many times, and then you just let the boulders drop, and things tend to fall apart. It's interesting. People are very different, and you and I have talked off mic about how we are as individuals. We often find ourselves in supporting roles. We support other people, but we're not always great at asking for help. I certainly am not always great at asking for help. You and I are quite independent, I would say. Wouldn't you agree? We're independent people.
I mean, that's how I was trained to be independent and always self-reliant, and I still am, I don't see that as negative necessarily, but learning how to ask for help and showing vulnerability is certainly a skill for people like us.
Yeah, that I would agree. But then you get the people who need the help anyway, but instead of asking for the help, just let their rocks fall. So you have to pick their rocks up anyway, but they never ask you to, they're not asking you for help.
Now that we know what rock and roll is about, would you like to read it again for our listeners, please?
Rock and roll. No longer interested in pushing pointless rocks up never-ending hills. Sisyphus anchored the gods. Who did I upset? No longer want to push the boulders of others. The reward for that is more rocks, like Jacob Marley's ghost, carrying the chains of his misdeeds. Who did I grieve? To prefer the hermit's life, where the rocks are your own and not someone else's. They're about survival, not a supplicant to the world. But wasn't Sisyphus a reluctant hermit of sorts? The rocks continue to roll down the slope for infinity's sake, each one someone's mistake. And two choices remain: dodge them or push them back up again.
You've been listening to Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maya.
And me, Andrew. You can find all the poems from this series in my new book, Beyond the Bunker, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Write Poetry.
The book is produced by our publishing company, Anarchy. And if you want to order it, contact us at vonperestproductions@outlook.com.
Where you can also contact us about other things, maybe even including a chat about the state of the world.